My name is Sisanda Tembani, and I'm with the Department of Environment, Forestry and Fisheries. I will be giving a presentation on herbicides, government and people. Working together with Debbie, who couldn't be here today, and she asked us to send her apologies. Firstly, just to give a bit of background, the department within the environmental programs and the National Resources Management has been working on alien clearing of invasive species for a while now, and there's been quite a lot of money that has been spent in efforts to try and clear the alien invasive species throughout the country. And currently it's in trying to align its pesticide policies and also its regulations to the international legislations to try and mitigate and eliminate some of the herbicides that are currently in use now to much more safer ones currently. So speaking of the international legislation, one of the policy or one of the regulations that we're trying to align with is the Rotterdam Convention, Annex 3 of the Rotterdam Convention, and then the Rotterdam Convention includes prior informed consents, which mainly assists countries to make informed decisions on banned or restricted pesticides, basically. Secondly is the Stockholm Convention, which speaks to persistent organic pollutants. This policy mainly tries to eliminate and restrict the use of manufacturing of persistent organic pollutants, as it is understood that they tend to have high toxicity or like carcinogenic impacts on the lives of people and the people that get to use it. We also have the Basel Convention, which mainly speaks to the control of transboundary movements of hazardous waste and ways of their disposals. There's Bamako Convention, which mainly imports of HW into Africa and control of transboundary movements and the management of these hazardous wastes. In this next slide, it's mainly a depiction of the World Health Organization classification system, together with the GHS system, which is the globally harmonized system. So basically, with those two tables, initially we were using the World Health Organization classification system for the herbicides that are currently in use. But because there's a high rate of illiteracy with our people, and also because it turned out that this classification system doesn't really give more specified labels on the herbicides that get to be used to be people. So it becomes tricky and difficult for people that are using the herbicides when they purchase these herbicides to actually identify whether it has a highly tox or it belongs to a category 1B, which is basically not supposed to be used by people. And we're trying to move to that classification to align to more of the globally harmonized system. Now with this system, it's much better because on the labels of the herbicides, it has a more simplified and a specific classification, basically, where there's use of pictograms and more clearer labels and coloring of the labels, so that whenever a person purchases the herbicide, they're able to identify that, okay, this is what I should expect. It has it's a highly toxic herbicide, and therefore, what kind of protective measures would one have to implement? Next is this depiction of mainly how, when one has purchased a herbicide, would then identify the chemical family, active ingredients of the herbicide, and the hierarchy herbicide group code, together with the groups of the World Health Organization. Also, with the herbicide policy and pesticide policies, there's a use of Act 36, which mainly governs all registrations of fertilizers or pesticides, and this is shown in Section 3 of Act 36 of 1947. It also governs the registrations of PCOs, which are pest control operators. This is according to Section 11 of the Act. It also regulates or prohibits the importation or sales of disposals of the herbicides. Act 36 also specifies under Section 4 that the registrar can actually cancel the registration depending on whether it does comply with the criteria that is put in for the application of the registration. It also demands paperwork for the herbicides a person has in their possession. It also grants import of the permits, and also includes appeals according to Section 6 of the Act. Then with the pest control operators process, PCO's costs can be registered through a few approved bodies according to Act 36, and examples of those bodies which one can get registered with to have the PCO qualification would be the AV CASA, for example. Also, New Africa Skills, the Invader Plant Specialists. Those are just a few of the organizations a person can be registered with for the PCO. Also, application for the registration of PCOs from Act 36. The Act also covers that. Also, how payments of application fees and submission of documents, it's all stipulated in the Act as well. Also, if a person gets successful upon the inquiry for the registration, a PIN number would be given to that person, and also to state whether the person has been successful in their application or not, and what is the way forward into that. So this is an example of what a person would actually receive upon inquiring for the registration, basically. And it does stipulate everything that I said previously, like how, what is needed, what extra documents is needed, and what a person is to expect upon the, if they do get successful in their registration, what they need to expect from that. So with the management of the pesticide policy, basically, it improves the legislative framework. It also encourages the development and use of alternative products and techniques, and that's where the integration of like the processes comes in, or when we're trying to control the alien invasive species, like to integrate into more natural ways of clearing the alien plants, and also not to be reliant on more of chemicals and all of that, because we're trying to move away from that. Also to integrate relevant international agreements and initiatives, just as I initially said, from the Rotterdam Conventions and all the other international legislations also, they come into place there. It also increases transparency and access to information and public participation. This is also like a big part of what the department is trying to achieve. As we all know, alien invasives are found everywhere, and so it is the department's mandate to clear them. But at the same time, it's important to, you know, integrate and involve the public, because they are also affected by the environment, essentially. It also pesticides with unmanageable risks. Now this would be pesticides that are basically have high toxicity and have carcinogenic impacts on people. When people get to use them, they affect them drastically. So these would be those with disrupting properties, endocrine disrupting properties, and also those with persistent organic pollutants. carcinogenic and immunotoxic potential, which are ones that belong to class 1A. And highly hazardous class 1B pesticides are also those pesticides that are classified under that group. Also pesticides with frequent and severe poisoning incidents, which are said to be arsenic. I'll give over to my colleague. Thank you.
I offered her a box. She declined.
Thank you, Sisanda. Is it on? Afternoon, everyone. My name is Ziphozonke, Hesewu from Cape Town, and I'm under WBS team. So I'll be carrying on the pesticides management in working for water. So the NRM pesticide policy was updated in 2012 and is continuously under review. Under the policy, it covers all herbicides used within the Working for Water programs. It excludes pesticides that have been banned internationally, which is the MSMA and other ones. The policy advocates for biopesticides and biocontrol measures, pushing towards more natural ways of managing our alien invasive species rather than depending on chemicals. So we have managed to come up with a herbicide species spreadsheet in efforts of controlling our alien invasive plants. So this is a one-stop shop where it lists all the Cara and Himba species. Consists of 424 species, treatment methods, herbicides, biopesticides recommended to control each species. You can get the spreadsheet through Kay. I'll show you an insert of it later on, and contact our office if you need any guidance on a species you're trying to control. So this is the spreadsheet. It's a big document, but just to highlight, so you'll find the species that you're trying to control here, a genus that it belongs to, the herbicide that are registered and safe to control that species, where you take your risk assessment and then decide on which herbicide you want to use, and so on. So the NRM Working for Water program ensures safety aspects in that within our teams, with the backing and 16 people, we provide training for a health and safety officer. We provide toolbox talks for participants in the field on how to use the pesticides correctly, recommend the appropriate PPE tailored for that pesticide that they decide to use. We also inform them on the herbicide toxicity, which we work very closely with UCT researchers. It informs us of all the impacts that a pesticide could give to our participants. And we also do self-assessments for the teams by monitoring, just to comply. So everything has challenges. The challenges that we face within the Working for Water programs is the high rate of foliar applications, which are very labor intensive, and also they carry other risks such as spray drift, where the pesticide is spraying at this location because of climate changes and all that can move and affect like 20 meters away unintended targets. And then there's a challenge of staff not wearing correct PPE and incorrect PPE provided. that is related to funding and herbicide companies not disclosing their agents in aquatic registered herbicides. So our way forward in mitigating our risks, we try implement measures to mitigate our risk. As I mentioned before, we work very closely with the UCT researchers on outcomes of herbicide toxicity exposure. We carry out awareness of potential risk of herbicides with platforms such as these, stakeholders engagements, including the public, of pesticide risks, and we advocate continuously of alternative measures and not relying on chemicals, which is our biocontrol, fire, all the natural measures. So we'll go to a case study. So the EP pesticide policy, as I said, that it's being looked over. We have managed to eliminate 5 pesticides, substituted a number. I didn't mention all of these, but here are 6 pesticides that have been managed to be substituted. As I mentioned before, the MSMA, which is banned internationally, we've also adapted that and substituted with the safer one, Impala. The famous one, gallon and diesel, is a safer alternative, which is turbidor, but you still find people using gallon and diesel. So these stakeholders engagements are here to promote and encourage people to move to our safer pesticides. We're currently working on engineering controls with pesticide manufacturers and changing formulations for safer products. We have taken steps to mitigate risks. As I said, the UCT research used guidelines and adapted from GHS global harmonized system, where pesticide products should have the colors to label danger, red, green, yellow. It must include hazard statement, so fatal if swallowed, irritates the eyes, etc. And PPE aspect that I mentioned earlier. So this is what we've used in eliminating, substituting hierarchy of controls. We've also followed a lot from the guidelines of pesticides management throughout the life cycle, so from cradle to the grave, preparing the pesticide, using it and disposing of it safely. You can download these guidelines on the FAO website. So overall, the take-home message or the pesticide presentation is, when you're trying to fight our alien invasive species, you look at the species spreadsheet, which I mentioned earlier was the one-stop shop. We'll be handing out to everyone a PDF, okay? So you look at the species spreadsheet and you identify the species that you're trying to control. You look at the herbicides registered for that species and you choose the one that's safe for you and your team. By looking at the human health aspect and the environmental health risks that each herbicide controls, and important you do a risk assessment before using that. You can always contact our office for any guidance or understanding of the spreadsheet that I showed earlier on. So overall, just to close my presentation, I'll show you an example of how I would use the herbicide spreadsheet. So let's say I'm controlling my species with black wattle in a cut stamp method. And these are all the registered pesticides, herbicides for black wattle. So what you look at, when I said you look at human risks and environmental risks within your spreadsheet, so we'll see that there's hatchet here. It's registered for black wattle. but the herbicide category, which it falls under for toxicity, it affects aquatic, it's acute toxic to mammals and birds. H3, those are all human effects, so it's harmful when swallowed, when inhaled, in contact with skin will cause irritation. So you will see that hatchet, you would need PPE, correct PPE to cover your participants if you decide to use hatchet. It's persistent in water and soil, harmful to aquatic life, meaning that whatever you control, you mustn't be near a water body. So as I said, there are a number of herbicides registered for the control of black water. So with your pesticide spreadsheet, you look at all the herbicides used and you try to choose the safest one for human and environment. So in this case, all of these pesticides have toxic effects on animals and human health and the environment overall. So the safer one is dumped out, which is a biopesticide. But you can always contact us for any assistance. Thank you very much.
Thank you to the team. Do we have any questions with regards to pesticide use, etc., for the team from Cape Town? Everybody know? Did everybody take cognizance of the fact that there is changes to the legislation with regards to information? I know that was set for October this year, and it's now been delayed till September. Is that correct? So it's September next year. It has to do with the information that will be provided on the packaging and also the inserts on herbicides for usage, because there's specific to the protection equipment that needs to be used. I've learned a tremendous amount myself with regards to what is going to take place, and certain pesticides and herbicides shouldn't even be used if you're using a cotton overall, because the cotton absorbs the pesticide or the herbicide and then it can be transferred directly to your skin. Right. No questions for the team? Right, one for the gentleman in front. Mike. Where's the green mic? There we go. Okay, let's use the red mic.
Thanks, Calvin Harris, Friends of Kingston Cross Park. So, under what conditions do you have to register as a pest control officer? Do the accreditation and all that? Okay,
well, you have to do the accreditation to be able to be registered, but anybody that is charging for the service requires to be a registered pest or herbicide application. So the moment you are offering that service, you need to be registered in doing that. So for instance, a homeowner who goes and buys his X, Y, and Z herbicide to apply it on no ban, he doesn't have to be registered. But if you are charging for that service, you must.
Thank you.
Right, great.
Sorry, I just want to ask, the herbicide spreadsheet that you were referring to, is that just for the use by the looking for teams, or if I have people asking me for which herbicide they can use for what, is that for the general public as well, to get guidance as to what they can and cannot spray?
That is correct. That is for the general public, and if I'm not mistaken, Kay, that is now on the Invasive Species SA site. Not yet? Not yet, but it will be. Alright, so email Kay if you would like that entire spreadsheet. It is available. Right, then ladies and gentlemen, we can take, oh, there we go, sorry. Carrie.
Hi everyone, Carrie from Cannabis Flavor. I just wanted to ask about the availability of biopesticides. Like she mentioned stump out, how readily available do we have to get them from the ARC? Are they only available for working for water projects, or are they available to the general consumer as well?
We'll let one of the team answer that question.
Thank you. They are available for general public. We have located that everyone uses them. But at the moment, there is trouble with procuring them. but you can contact us for any assistance to ARC. It's a manufacturing issue.
And it must just be mentioned, Carrie, that there's a great understanding that must go with biocontrol, especially for the public, because the application and the mode that this biocontrol takes, especially the stump out, it's a very long period. It's a fungus which infects the plant. Biopesticides. So, biopesticides, sorry, okay. And what the general public has to understand, it's not the same as using the chemicals in the past. It's not instantaneous. It's a longer process, but it's obviously a safer process to use.
Can I just add, biocontrol is the use of agents to help with the fight of alien invasive species. We've got our team in Joburg, if you want to get a hold of any biopesticides agents to use, Ziphozonke and Movango. They're here somewhere, but we can provide their details too. Thank you.
Thanks. Where's Movango? There's Movango. Carrie, at the back. Take note. All right. Okay, nobody else is waving their hands in there. All right, there's another one.
Okay, we're going to move to a better version. What do we do with our old, horrible poisons? And how do we dispose of those?
Currently in the country, that's our mandate as the department to get rid of them. But currently in the country we don't have. There's only one institution in Wales, and it costs us millions to transfer and get our toxic pesticides incinerated. But you can contact us, let us know if you've got a pile of obsolete chemicals that you want to use or you don't know how to dispose of, even the container. Washing it out is not safe, and then reusing it to store water. By law, you're supposed to bring your container to us, and then we dispose of them. I think even Department of Agriculture does it, but you can contact us for any guidance. Thank you.
Great.